Julie here with Serious Talisman, and this is Soul Hour. Midheaven is with Spica, and the ascendant is ruled by Saturn. Venus is with Aldebaran, with Antares, opposing Aldebaran today, and Venus is with Antares, ruling over now Spica, just when Saturn and Mars square. And so, one of the gnosis that I had when I did the Moon series body butters that I have, it was at a time where the business I buy talismans from is basically founded by 2 day charts. And I felt like I don't have representation. Yes, yes. I felt like I don't have representation. My mother is also a day chart. Now, for day charts, because of the intense rape of 9 millennia, the Hellenistic division of the day and night sect, I address it in Jupiter Point of Talis podcast on BitChute. Then the division of night sect works because of those rapes. And it really does affect everything. So I felt like as a night chart, there is no representation. There's no representation for me because Venus is being misunderstood. And the sacred rage of Mars and Venus is not being properly owned or addressed. Okay? Mars is angry at the rapists. He is not angry at the people that sleep around. He is not angry at the non-monogamous people. Okay, think about it. One of the notion of Aries, which Mars rules, is, being so impulsive that sometimes it needs to be reminded that, hey, older people or grown-ups, they have their own orders, and the naive Mars will ask, okay, but why this and not that, and why that and not that, and why? Okay, it doesn't have that notion. The Mars of Scorpio, funnily enough, and what is known about Scorpio, the more that the Scorpio is angry at somebody that cheated them, the more they cheated. It's Scorpio, what can I say? I have a good representation of all the decans of Scorpio, and my Mars that's ruling them is in the last decan. So people of the last decan, like if they are monogamous, then they understand those slips happen. They understand it's not really monogamy, but or alternatively, they're very naively either not even monogamous, because it's kind of like, well, I'm not going to look for, some couples look in each other's phone. It's not my sentence. I'm not going to bring the name of the dead for that humble purpose. Okay, it's kind of like some people look up into each other's phone and jealous, and someone's kind of like, if you know you're not monogamous, that they can have theirs. And that's Mars. Mars is looking for what is right. When will Mars put the fire if somebody raped? Venus, Vinian, 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 Vinian. Should make a talisman of this. Vinian. Venus is bringing things together. Is diplomacy. So, about the Libra and the Venus and Mars, okay, the Libra and Aries, the Taurus and Mars. Taurus be like, just sitting there, looking like Aphrodite, not really understanding that who is Aphrodite or why do people make a big deal out of it, because it's just natural. And then Mars will be the one that talks about things. And generally they're going to be rude. Venus will be the elegant. Mars is a little bit of a brute, but it acts to protect what is true, so that there can be union. Sphere and Sandra did a Dana Balgady talisman, and they said Dana Balgady, which is more of a Saturn and Jupiter quality. Yes, thank you. I'm recording, please. Very difficult to do something cohesive with Mars squaring Saturn. And Mars is in the sign of parents for me, so it's in the 10th house. So you see the disruption to my midheaven coming from that day chart. um, but here is the thing. Then Balgidi, according to the gnosis, okay, when Sphere and Sandra did that talisman, then Balgidi doesn't care about people jaywalking. Okay? For Mars, most of what people consider, oh my God, they cheated on me. Oh my God, they this. Oh my God, they that. That's considered jaywalking. Nobody raped anybody. All hemispheres are aligned. People didn't get dissociative identity disorder. Okay, we're good. Who cheated on you? Then why you being seen with that energy in the astral? Mars is, and I'll tell you why, because Mars is also the investigator. So that's the guy they hire. You understand? So they're like, okay, let's take a look. They follow that person now. They usually follow the person that is accused of being the cheater. What do they do? You accuse them of cheating. You understand their hemispheres are severed. There's one that tries to save people, and then some they're mind controlled to use to traffic people. The good news, they probably weren't coming to cheat you. The challenging news, and now the investigator is in big trouble. It's kind of like, well, they're doing trafficking. Maybe is she in it? Because he didn't try to cheat. He tried to traffic somebody. Did that person in it? The spouse in it? I don't know. That's night charts. And I really felt that night charts weren't represented. Day charts, they deal, Jupiter is the planet of truth, benevolent. Zeus was also committing incest. Ares was killing the rapist. Are you gonna kill your own father? If he raped? To stop the rape. I mean, if you would be recovered, I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be that big of a deal if they don't do it anymore and somebody is allowed to recover, to grow into their sensual self, to live a good life. But then it wouldn't be to begin with, because people don't just wake up and decide to rape people. And Saturn's order is tradition, is the good cop. Now, what do you have to do to climb up the ladder? I talked about it in the previous video. So, and bringing Dana Valgady, which is kind of like making the police work. There's a story in Netherlands about somebody that made the police work. I'm not going to address that, but it wasn't very monogamous. For that, they hired to catch a celebrity. But for the traffic children, okay, in a minute. Now, this brings us to the notion that the sacred rage of Mars and Venus. And Mars squares Saturn with midheaven on Spica. What happens when every time something crosses Spica? The odd scales get even for a second, and then okay, remember the Giselle case? That was when something was crossing. I think it was Venus Spica or Lilith Spica. The Giselle case was equivalent to the true case, if people didn't get it. Because they don't make the connection just yet, because it's all just hushed up by the benevolent, charitable Jupiter that commits incest and the Saturn that's traditional and waits for the 6-year-old to turn 9. Now, here's the thing. The vice of Mars is that, yeah, it can be the type of person that sleeps around. Venus is about union. But here is why this courtesan-cartesan division is creating something that we need to bring into union and we need to bring into cohesion, because for union to be truth, we need the sacred rage of Mars and Venus. And when we set our boundaries, we find that there are rules that are authentic. Okay, I'm half Dutch. And before rules stopped making sense, we have Saturn in Aquarius. And Saturn in Aquarius, Aquarius is a sign of architecture. The only bank in the world that tried for several decades to be zero usury in the history of finances is Amsterdam Bank. Then they funded the Vogue without letting the people know. Something to do with rape children. That's older than them. It's 9 millennia old at least. But this shows you Saturn in the 8th house of Netherlands' 1800 chart, which is Saturn in its own sign Aquarius, tells us that there is a lineage, a tradition that goes all the way to the 1500, to the Amsterdam Bank. I think it was 1500. I'm not sure if it was, because Vogue was 1500s, no? But 8 houses shows of a lineage of what came before that chart as well. And Saturn in his home sign is kind of like, oh, rules that make sense. 100% reserve, no usury. What made them flex these rules? Trafficked children, extortion, and then they got money for Vogue. And then, of course, Vogue tanked because it was funded around trafficking. So was the state of Israel. That's now having a Uranus return. It could perish unless they abolish trafficking, of course, which means all the Epsteins and the ritual abuse and stuff like that. But they also, the cohesive truth, expansion, benevolence, and order, in the good sense of the word, cannot exist without the sacred rage of Mars and Venus. It's not that we don't have enough good Jupiters up there. We have fantastic Jupiters. They just like children. They can be benevolent, be very benevolent. not when they are with children, depending on the type of abuse that they went through. And it's that every Venus that goes up the ladder needs to comply with that. She needs to see, she needs to talk about cheating before she talks about will and consent. When somebody was violated, they don't even have an I am. But that's something that, with the dissociation of the global ritual abuse, the day charts can be dissociated from. Even though it happened to them. I saw it in my home. I had to take 2 years apart from my own mother after the Me Too. Because the dissociation was so corruptive of the conscious self. That's the thing about dissociation. And other people that were beside me could have seen me being dissociated. And I'm surrounded with night charts. Some of them had, some of them I cannot see in real life, not because of even hierarchy or space or time, but because the safety, and I addressed it in my solar return, the safety of meeting these people is not there because they're entrenched with trafficking rings. But they themselves had to be defenders. Some of them survivors, some are still in there. Mars and Jupiter is the right to exit violence, to open the door, to forge through. And this is how I feel that the sacred rage of Mars and Venus and the courage that is associated with anything Martian. Jupiter is about benevolence. It's able to speak the truth because it's so benevolent. I'm Jupiter ruled. That it played in my favor. Jupiter in Capricorn. It's fallen, but it has played in my favor a lot of times because there are many times that I was able to speak about the things that nobody was able to speak about, and I'm still here. I was tortured. I was raped. When Mars is able to anger, while Jupiter will speak from benevolence and love and optimism, Mars is able to anger. And that sacred rage is important. Mars is me being angry, being able to be angry at someone that did all the trickery to get my heart. You say, that's all very cool. Not a Peter ring, not a human trafficking ring. And hey, wait a second. Down to the nitty gritty, are you sure we are intimately compatible? And they want attention, they're gonna get their attention. But we're also gonna get my boundary. I'm not being judgmental. That's neat. I'm just speaking the truth. So if I didn't speak that, if I didn't say it, say, why didn't you say anything? You were allowing that by not speaking. And unfortunately, when we talk about the Mars and Venus, if we talk about the freeze reaction or the fawn reaction, Mars is usually associated with the attack reaction. But there's also the delayed response. If you're raging, then you're reactive abusive. If you're freezing, then you wanted it and you allowed it. Because what was underneath? Scorpio loves doing that. What was underneath? So underneath is that it's not relaxed arousal. It's misplaced arousal. The water weren't watering. It was pissed at, therefore. At the essence, we can, if we are completely redundant, that's the level of discernment between what is actually willing consent and what isn't. Also, you say because it wasn't watered, then it was rape. No, that's not what I'm saying. Call it whatever name, but that wasn't it. You want to say that way? That wasn't it. It's the sacred rage that people love to turn, particularly the restrained people love to turn it into, oh, they are obsessive. There's probably something underneath that obsession. Yes, they were raped. They're angry at being raped. Why can't they let it go? They're trying to retrieve their I am, their own identity. They're not projecting. Something in the actions. Now, here's the thing with Mars in Jupiter sign, and Mars squares Saturn, and Saturn in Jupiter sign, we get to see the life and death meanings of beliefs and worldview. For example, when I was trying to heal from sexual boundary violation, that happened even in the astral. So it's kind of like there was no, it's like, oh, you call that where nobody understands what I'm talking about. And people pretend not to understand because they have to do that in rights to get real estate because they need to build a family and provide and have a profession, do something with their lives and so on. And I spent several decades, it's the story of many people spending several decades thinking that nobody believes them when everybody knows exactly what they're talking about. But they have to do it in the next right, in that holiday or this holiday. That's why the Me Too, that's how you get women that saying that the Me Too went too far. Because the house that they're living in was made by rape. But what can they do? And they have vacations and they have. Now, those life and death meanings of our worldview. And when I was trying to recover, I tried this manifestation and benevolence and reality, and that really exposed the cults that attacked the innocent, like the murder of Madeleine in 2007, the red shoes thingy. And by the way, I was listening to Tom Waits' Red Shoes at that. Okay, because that's the ripple effect of those rituals. Just like there is a ripple effect. Somebody in the astral, I don't know if it was Fear and Sundry, somebody did a benevolent ritual. And it was so benevolent that it had the power to heal the heartaches of hearts. But something was just going, something was supposed to be really a day gone bad, and my mother stepping on all of my wounds and me being a fraction of a moment being the mirror of that. It's quite accurately reflective because we both deep and profound. And then something shifted the energy We went to the sea, and everything felt unreal, but I felt this curation of the heart. And I saw somebody did a benevolent ritual. But then there were attempts to take that ritual and to bring it into the lower astral and to corrupt that ritual. And so, just like there is a ripple effect of these benevolent rituals, also when those malefic, corruptive rituals are done, um, which are basically to make everything seem meaningless because of the levels of horror and torture, then those also have ripple effect. And now, not talking about that is keeping it in the dark, is actually allowing those to take precedence. And just like there are benevolent secrets, okay, the womb, the baby still growing in the womb before the belly pops out, okay, that's the benevolent secret. There are also the secrets that will kept in the dark, are violating the ability of that child to grow and become a newborn and have a happy upbringing and grow into a person that loves life. The sacred rage of Mars and Venus, the Mars that risks his neck, okay, Taurus is the neck, the courage to risk one's neck, to speak, Venus, the courage being Mars. That sacred rage of killing the rapists rather than the necks of the voice that speaks about the rape that always happened by the most benevolent. Also, because if somebody, usually people are raped and then they're forced to rape another innocent, and then they, of course, they carry the shame, and it's both by having to show a facade, and it's both by internally trying to compensate for the things that they did. Now, within those circles that they did that in, they can't be benevolent because those circles are killing, eradicating the benevolent to try to bring the most evil to rule. And outside those circles, they have to seem as the most benevolent because then they are a monster to be killed. This is why in a previous episode I said to the people that support me in energy, I'm not able to see most of you, okay? Because I'm tending to that dumb fuckery, okay? And in those worlds, they use everything benevolent to turn it into a bait of control. So it's very difficult to even absorb. The point is that they want it to be the only way to absorb benevolence would be dissociation. And this is what they want so that they can hide what they do. And in fact, what they do is exactly that. So it's very difficult because a person that speaks, of course, they risk being accused of being that, being accused of being the monster while having no one hold the light for them to not be a monster, and then having to sustain that where others didn't. And that would not be possible without the sacred rage of Mars and Venus. It's not elegant. And mostly by the time that it is able to speak with cohesion, it had to go through it all, comprising not just all alone, but with the surrounding, this being alone, which is horrid, and then it is with the surrounding energies that were undermining its very self. And sometimes, because the point of these rituals is to get the self to undermine itself, to delete itself, to erase itself. And by the time it is able to speak, for many, it can also be almost too late. Of course, for the children are no longer with us, it's too late. But and for me, doing the moon talismans, later the Jupiter moon, and indeed, I agree. There's hardly any elections that were not pinpointing the darkest of dark. The Jupiter, even in its best elections, Jupiter Cancer elections for talismans, they are confronting us. If I think about the talisman I did with Venus and Jupiter with Sirius, okay, and now yesterday turned into a lip balm that I love. it's, it's amazing. It's not commercial. It's once in 80 something years. And to be very honest, because I did it, I just captured it and I didn't believe I will find a good election and so on and so forth. It wasn't made in the best, I escaped, right? It's not going to be, it's not in the best hygiene conditions, and it's not in the best, it's not anything that would be FDA approved. I mean, of course, it could be FDA approved because Pfizer was, but it's not in the most conditions that you would make such a thing usually. But that was a once in 80 something years, and it took precedence over many things, and it was next to Hades and Kronos. So it was addressing the housing that was the real estate of the Epsteins, the dealers, and the Detrus, because they tried to put me in one. And they tried that every wealth that I will make or every business that I will make will be money laundering of those things. That's why I'm tending to that. That's why it bothers me with work or with developing a business or relationship. And one of the people that are really, really pinpointed by that. And I'm a night chart. So for me, it was the sense that the night charts are being misrepresented. And that's one of the things that prompted me um, to start my own talismans, not just as something that could be, let's say, working with a bigger company or being, um, maybe being an affiliate, I don't know, but because I felt, oh my God, I'm misrepresented. Why is there something for everybody? But I always sense that yes, because I'm a night chart. And it's a part of the Chiron things. It's going to happen to people when they're meant to develop their own things. So sometimes there's grief around that, there's loss around that, but there's also miraculous healing because our voices are important. And I want to talk a little bit about Orpheochus, because the story with Orpheochus is that it had been a laughing stock. But I came from academia, and astrology was seen as the pseudoscience, as the thing that they would mention as an example for what is not scientific, even when they taught political science. Trying to discern social science, there's not accurate science. Astrology was given as the pseudoscience, and then there were the exact sciences. Now, I came from physics, so I didn't study physics in university because they made it impossible to finish in 3 years. But in physics, we don't like the physics department actually already studies the spiritual and matter facets of the atom. I knew one person that wrote their thesis around that. I don't know how many children you had to rape, okay? Um, the reason, and here's the thing, because I not only didn't comply with those, and didn't comply with being trafficked, which would probably turn me into a madam if I would, because it's kind of like the torture is so terrible that people are preferring to recruit other people. And it's not about me thinking that I'm better than anyone. It's like, kind of like, hey, if I had the privilege that I said no and stayed alive, then I want to raise that into awareness because those other people can't say it. And the thing that they try to ruin the Venus, they try to make people feel unworthy, and they try to make people feel unworthy, and at the same time believe that only their sexual power supposedly over someone, men or women, is their card in life. It was not true at all. Or they have to look stupid to get into the patriarchy or something like that. Um, Both men and women, by the way. Okay, I saw some men that play dumb and they're so convinced. It's like a Newfoundland. The the dog. It is so smart, but it has such a dumb face. It can look dumb. It can look so dumb it could run a mafia. You leave that door, it can empty your entire kitchen and look at you with that dumb face. And even if you put locks on everything, you look at you with that dumb face. It's like, I don't know what you're saying. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. And it's so fucking adorable. So for me, when I think about the talismans, it's about the night chart being represented. But here's the thing: those that have navel moon nakshatra, we all are in friction with each other. And most of us are the creators. Navel is, it's the belly, what's inside the belly, the baby. So it's, um, I'm still trying to think about the structure that works for all the navel moon nakshatras to have place to create, because we seem, not only that we seem to collide one another. My mother is navel moon. Um, People around me, okay, whether it's people in academia or even when I did water expands upon cooling, okay, the family. um, yes, I don't know the exact moon nakshatra of my father, um, but this is something that has been when I discovered the moon nakshatra, it was Lada, and then Lada's moon nakshatra is not compatible with all the other with other ones, and then this is, it was kind of like a eureka. It's like, oh my God, we have been surrounded. So all of our creative endeavors couldn't really grow and bloom because we kept contradicting each other. And to us, to be true to ourselves, we couldn't just people please around that because it was be our very nature, our very housing, our very ideas. So this is about the night charts being represented, but it's also to take into consideration that I'm a navel moon nakshatra, which means that it's all the night charts that aren't navel moon nakshatra, unless they are exactly my sidereal sign nakshatra. Okay, there is no different sign. Um, and now it brought a little bit of an authentic, okay, an authentic border, okay, which is Saturn's structure, that is actually authentic and true. So it came about with a lot of tears, a lot of all the wounds of being included in the table that you're not really, where children could be served, versus being unincluded, and the wound of this and on that accompanied me since at least 2007. Um, that's the that challenged me from growing in a relationship. The wounds of abandonment, the wounds of being seen as something that you're not, the wounds of fear to accuse someone for something that somebody else could have tortured them and taken on their energy, or could have done that to me or to all of us. The wound around origin and originality, the discerning, okay, where is my value? Where is my voice in here? Um, the wound around wanting to give certain people credit, and then understanding that that name is also sometimes the name, okay, that did certain things, not knowing if certain people are in MK often targeting, trafficking, and sacrificing people while pretending they are third parties or that need to be eliminated with sorcery or something. Men and women. So there's a shit, and the wound of the trafficking estates and so on, because moon is also housing. So there are many things that the conception, the birthing of this moon talismans, here a Sirius talisman, and the presentation of the night charts, it was very heavyweight. It wasn't easy, it wasn't light. And yet the understanding that I too have a creation here that is distinct, and it was birthed out of my misrepresentation, and somehow that was the understanding that when one asks oneself, oh, but there is already people that do that, or people that do that, where is my contribution? And it unfortunately was by me feeling misrepresented that grew this contribution, and this particular line of moon talismans, that I'm still growing and I'm still learning to understand myself. It was not born of reciting mantras. It was born of not being even able to tell whether it's night or day while the election pops up and you're like, okay, we got to do something. It's something that represents something completely different than any prescribed Saturnian, and yet is the utmost of Saturnian in its Martian ways. And I do have Saturn in Mars sign being a night chart. It has a life and death meaning to it. Is being at the place where people may have tried to assassinate me because, and my ability to access housing because it exposes the buried alive children, and not being able to hide under the guise of anything. And it's very difficult. It's probably why I'm single. No, think about being with a person like that, man or woman. You're not able to hide anything from yourself. And it doesn't probe into your consciousness. It suddenly becomes enclosed within itself. I remember one of my coping mechanisms when I was astrally raped. People don't like that because when there is misplaced arousal, okay, they try to make people feel the rape more aggressively when they dare to speak, which unfortunately happened to me. If it was enough to go into complete dissociation and bipolar state, I guess that was rape, yes. I get that. I guess that was quite some shock and trauma. If that was a part of the ripple effect of the rituals that they did when they kidnapped and murdered Madeleine, there was nobody to even understand what is going on. Because if they would have to understand or maybe reconnect with the part that maybe even severed the hemispheres as a psychologist, as a psychiatrist that did that to children. Thank you. My Guide water. Mercury retrograde. It was used as a door to hold the door and has a leaf of eucalyptus, which is, I consider eucalyptus very Jupiterian. So it's my Guide water bottle. So one of my coping mechanism was like, oh, men don't like strong women. It wasn't about strong women, just that I couldn't, and I even said it. I said, no woman for you. It's about me not being able to be feminine and soft and relax into. Even to the person who was the rapist, it was difficult not just to address the fact that it wasn't about misleading or being unclear or being, no, it wasn't lack of clarity, it was violation. And they even said that they cannot, that they're not ready to deal with that because they had to become dissociated from that. They thought, oh, it's because I was misleading. It's because I was, no, you were very clear. I just said no, that this is not working for me. This type of sexuality not working for me, and you violated that. And the after dealing with that is the things that people that deal with rape deal with. And then I try to see what helps people that went through rape, because that's the closest. Apparently there were no healing methods for people that were raped back then. It was 2007. And I became one of the contributors of developing methods to curate from rape, which necessitate, yes, abolishing rape in society. Because I had to look into the chakra medicine, to the energy medicine, to psychology of attachment, to the research, and everything was like Swiss cheese. And even to talismanic magic. There were rituals done on me from here and from there when they tried to make me religious. And I'm like, why are they trying to, why is it important for me to be religious? Because then they can traffic under the guise of religion. They try to make me religious Jew. I don't know who are these people because these rituals, they do these rituals in enclosed spaces, and they have those ripple effects. Until I would learn that there was a Jewish human trafficking organization, the Traffic Jews, and they put them in boats. And one of the people that was one of my teachers in academia was severely tortured and is a part of those organizations today. And when he would have these split hemispheres, he would try to save me from himself, and then he would try to bend the timelines to kidnap me to one of those boats, one of those ships. And to try, those who look at my Spirit of Matter channel on YouTube, I wore a hat. I'm not religious, but they try to, because that hat makes me look like I'm religious, they try to close the account with the last picture of me looking like a religious person, because he was in charge on the way things look like. They would gang rape the young girls until there was no sense of self, so there was no resistance, so to speak. Then they would traffic them. Later they would traffic them to the Nazis in Argentina, in Germany, and they made for the money they found Israel. And they still do this today. It's a Jewish Zionist lawyer that exposed this, Roni Sadovnik-Aloni, that, by the way, was born on the same day of Mark Rutte's Valentine's Day. And both of them have a solar return with the Saturn Neptune ingress into 0 degree Aries, which is also a degree away from my Neptune return final transit, the Neptune direct on my Neptune square. Sorry, not Neptune return. It would be very fascinating. I would be quite old. And she is considered controversial because she was a Zionist Jewish lawyer, and she exposed that. It came from within the Zionism that they hate, that they exposed their crimes. I don't know if she had to rape kids to get the certification. She talks about, she tackles cases of incest and of academic sexual boundary violation. It's basically trafficking cult, but she can't say it. And there was even a case of child abuse, child kidnapping by the welfare that she couldn't tackle because she some say that she was used to do malefic stuff, and she was afraid that there would be murder. Um, so I was trying to speak with her if there can be like lawyers from other countries working with lawyers from these countries to negate those things. Um, but there was, within the limitation of what she can speak about, she talks about quite a lot, more than any other person with certification can, and I do appreciate that. And of course, that doesn't mean that I would justify anything where she would be, if she would be tortured or used to do malefic things, then of course I would not justify that. Nor would I justify her torturing to do that, naturally. But nor do I justify the torturing of or them perpetuating torture. So, and this is, I think, when I speak about an energy, is usually bringing, bringing, um, bringing that energy and and so everything around would be the manifestation of that energy. And by the way, one of the things that I thought to do with Venus Jupiter was the Orion currency. And again, it was very, and even the person that inspired me, the rituals behind currency I can't even refer because I know that at that time he had to do also crime, and I think that some of that crime had to do with rape and stealing the creative energy, and something to do with housing. Um, and again, if I'm wrong here, then I would be very happy to be wrong here. But I also, he said that he still has to do crime. So, and we see the intricacies, like somebody's coming up and giving a good important information about the fact that they do rituals around issuing of currency, and that harms our ability to conceive economic policies or philosophies or sciences, or participate in trade in a way that's benefic. And then I learned that Orion was associated with slavery. I don't know if that is true. Um, and so, because Sirius is in Orion constellation, um, foundation of a country. So there are many things that need to be tended to. I did not eventually make the currency. There was no good election for that. Um, but uh, definitely, those things are very, very, very important to tackle, because there was even an issue around, I talked about in a video that didn't upload about the Epstein Mengele doctor, or they had a dentistry office that was a torture room. And the fact that very likely many dentists had to participate in such rituals to get certification. And I joked about Jewish ancestries and Jews and teeth, um, and even about the possibility of death just because somebody needs to go through a teeth treatment. I had a friend that had a mother that was a dentist. The mother died of cancer. I wouldn't be surprised if that was orchestrated. And when I when I addressed my friend who asked about healing, and I told her, listen, to get certification, people have to rape children alive to cameras. What healing? What therapy? Then there was a silence on the other road. The people that went through me, through the Me Too, through acknowledging things, through being afraid of being called leaders themselves, through being, okay, is those people turn mute, because this is something that is so deep that even the most courageous turn mute when it comes to that. Um, and and I'm talking here about a person that if they knew somebody needs, I don't know, a tea treatment, they will make sure that person gets it fully covered and holistically. And even they turn mute because the level of atrocities is so fearsome to people that they can't contain it, that they don't know how to respond, that they don't even know how to talk to a person, because the paradigms are all so corrupted by the very rituals that they're being busy with the wrong advices. And it's not their fault, it's not their lack of benevolence, it's that it's genuinely and authentically overwhelming. So wait a second, that person turns to that corruption. Well, Moon is a point of Talis in my chart, and Venus, Jupiter with Sirius in Cancer is exactly, they were meeting exactly around my Moon, which is a point of Talis in my chart, and they were meeting next to Kronos and Hades, which is the real estate of the Diddlers and the Epsteins, and the rituals that happen on those real estates. And I only now noticed that the talisman may have been incredibly active in the past several months, I guess. I don't know, when was it meeting? When did I do that talisman?